of life.
My favorite color is transparent.
Okay. Can you expand on that?
No. No, take your time. Absolutely. I love that we have Spider-Man in the crowd. Yeah.
You said that, and Spider-Man turned around like,
Well, 'cause he's confused.
like, where?
I wasn't trying to call him out or anything.
What's that, brother? What about it? Do I do signatures?
Oh, cool.
Me? Him? Yeah, they both do signatures.
I'll sign
He'll
your.
get up and sing "I'm a little teapot" if you really want it.
I've seen him do it.
We're good?
I'm going to need
Hey,
6
everybody,
beers.
welcome. I am Uncle Nasty. I'm one of the co-hosts on a YouTube channel called Gabe's Cave. We are blessed to be able to be here at the second CowTown event, and we are hosting this panel. These two gentlemen right here, McLain, McGuire, Michael Hinson, they are in the industry of comic books, and they do all types of things. And they are here to talk to you guys and answer any questions that you guys want to ask. Feel free, and thank you so much for being a part of this. Be sure to check out the Gabe's Cave booth, and we got some free things to hook y'all up with. McLain, Michael, take it away.
Ooh, well, thank you guys for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We actually walked into this room, and there was one person here. Now there's more, so we're a little intrigued at this point, you know. So, but you know, I would like to start off. Does anybody have a question that can kind of help us roll into this whole panel? You have a question?
How do y'all start out?
Oh, good question. I'll let you go first.
Well, I started well after you did. I started writing my own story about January of last year, and I had this great plan to get into this industry, go to cons, and March, the Dallas Fan Expo was going to be this wonderful launching point, and COVID happened, and there were no shows. So I had to find a way to sell my stuff online, and that sprung
Wow.
Comic Shield. So
You made that.
so I do the comic shippers now, as well as write my story. So I've been doing this since January of last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's been quite a learning experience. So
it is.
with all the writing and art and things I've done in my career, this is different.
What do you think the most valuable lesson you've learned so far in 12
Most
months?
valuable lesson.
Or if you had one out of
I would say
probably a million.
the most important thing is to not to be too hung up on perfection and make sure you get things done.
That is
So
true.
accomplish. It feels good to accomplish even small steps,
Yeah.
and just be open to making mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes regardless.
Oh, well, you're going to make more mistakes than you do success, and that's what makes you better and better. So,
Yeah, learned a lot from this guy.
you know, I try to help as much as I can. I've been in the industry for over 16 years, and honestly, I got into the industry by accident. I've always been a designer and semi-artist. I don't really claim the artist, label, but a designer. So I can take triangles, circles, and squares and make really cool stuff, so that's really neat. And I've always been in marketing and things like that. And I did that for a long time. And a buddy of mine owned a comic book shop. And I love comic books. I've been a comic book reader since I was 6 years old. So he made this brilliant offer to me and said, hey, come work for me at my comic book store. And I thought, oh, wow, I'm going to be able to quit my career job at the time and work at a comic book shop. But then he was like, well, we don't make any money, but I can pay you in comics. And I was like, oh, wow, I can get free comics. Like, that's even better. So I worked for him part-time. Well, there was a lot of artists that would come in and say, well, I need writers to help me. I got this really cool drawings and I need a writer to help me finish my story. Or writers that are saying, that was a great story. I need artists to help finish my story off. And so we designed a company called The Connection. And what we did is we connected artists and writers and people like that together. And I had no idea about the comic industry and how it worked. And the first show I ever went to after talking to this, I think we started with like 6 or 7 people, and everybody was concerned about their IPs, and so I had to learn about that because I come from the music industry and IPs are like huge, and so learning about that, learning about their stories, and we put this anthology together, and basically in a month went to our first Comic-Con and destroyed our lives. We had no idea what we were doing, and so it was this cluster of madness. Like I remember now that I look back on it, I thought, wow, that was a disaster. Like that, even though it was the first thing, but we learned a lot, and I focused on the fact of going table by table and meeting people and learning what they've done and what their path is. And when you talk to people like you do every day, there's positive and negatives, and you learn a little bit from everyone. So that's what I did over a course of a year, is learned a lot. And then I learned the structure more of comic books. And then the first batch of comic books that we had out, it became a point where people were like, well, now the comic book needs to be finished. We need a letterer. What's that? They're like, well, a designer is a letterer. They come in and letter and bubble all the pages. And I was like, oh, yeah, that guy. And I was like, well, I'm a designer. I can try it. So somebody taught me how to use Illustrator and design in bubbles. And so that's kind of how I started. I just started lettering comic books. And
when you said something key there, the adversity, the bad.
That's my wife.
That it didn't.
Sorry.
That it didn't go the way you thought it was going to go.
Oh, it did not at all.
But the mistakes and the adversity, and that's really
Dude,
what makes it.
We showed up to Wizard World Arlington. Was our first show in 2007, or 2006, and I was like, well, let's get a 6-foot table for $200, and 8 people can sit at that table.
Oh.
8 artists.
Oh yeah, that
was amazing.
You guys were close. You guys were tight.
Oh, people were mad. And we stayed in this hotel that looked like, pictures from Psycho. Marty and I knew each other around the time. So, that's my wife. She's super cool. And good looking.
Nice
too.
plug.
Yeah. I like people to know. So what's that? Oh, you don't want that. No. She knows all the stories in and out. Yeah, it was a big disaster. And there's so many pieces of art on the table that people were like, hey, did you draw this? And there were other artists going, yeah, shit, why not? I mean, it was just really weird, So learning the structure of comic books, I think it was around 2009 or 10, I helped some folks put together a show that became Denver Comic Con. And at Denver Comic Con, they had Russ Wooten there. Russ Wooten was a letterer, or still is a letterer for Image Comics. He does a lot of stuff for Robert Kirkman. He did The Walking Dead, Invincible, stuff like that. Well, my good friend Rita Moore, she taught me how to letter. And basically it was like, hey, here you go. Here's the fundamentals. You're doing great. Just keep it going. And I wanted to letter more. For some reason, I got intrigued by it. So I wanted to letter more. And so I met Russ at one of the conventions, and he was super cool. Like, gave me all these really cool techniques, and I probably even shouldn't say this, but he was slipping me pages to letter just to kind of test it out. It was really cool, man. And so I learned a lot from that dude. And then I met, a few years after that, met John Lehman, and they were working on the Chew book, and he gave me some pointers. And the number one pointer he gave me, which I was struggling at the time, was just do your own thing and people will adapt to that. And I was like, well, no, everybody's talking about standards. Standards? What's that? He's like, you mean 20 years ago? Right. He said, those people are still reading the same books. He said, standards are no more. You create your method. You're a designer. You're a letterer. You're an artist. You design your own style. If you don't do that, then you're just going to be working for everybody.
Well, and the lettering's underrated.
I'll go with yes on that because I'm a letterer.
So, to give you a little props, because it's not as I've been an artist for all of my life, and that's just an element I hadn't gotten into. And when you start doing it, you realize there's more complexities to this than what you thought to begin with, and that's true for the whole process. But certainly with that, because it feels like it's an afterthought, and it's not. You have to design around it. You have to, just what you've done to help me with breaking up, paragraphs of
Well, so
of
and
data.
That's a good, not to get off course, but that's a good way to look at it. Like what I realized, my wife has been in the middle of all this, so she knows. I come from a music industry background, 27 years in the music industry.
So sorry.
Me too. I have 3 gold records under my belt, 16 soundtracks that I've done for movies. I'm sure you've all watched.
Nothing at all. Have you?
Nothing that will make me look cool. But like I did all that, and I noticed something about the music industry, which everybody goes into this, is like it's a cutthroat industry. Even your own band members were in competition with you. It was freaking crazy. So the comic industry, like everybody says, man, you fit pretty well in the comic industry. I'm like, it's because it's the same thing as the music industry. Like nobody likes each other. Everybody's in competition. And it's crazy. So I developed which was called CCP Comics, which is Comics Creators Publishing, to give people the right tools, knowledge, and experience to do what we do for absolutely nothing. Because I think it's important that people know, one, I'm not in competition with anybody. I don't mean to say it like this, but I really don't give a shit. I really don't. I would rather help you and watch you succeed. And, the only thing I'll hold you to is like when you're in San Diego charging $15 a signature, dude, give me a high five like you know me so I look cool. At least, I mean, that'd be pretty cool,
Well, that's a pretty key. So I got into this, and my group of friends weren't. They were helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get into this with that competitive. I didn't have that part of the world to deal with.
Yeah.
And it was just encouragement and help, and so I had a different perspective coming into it when I did, and who I came into it with.
Yeah.
And so it gives me a way more positive. And now I've seen some of the other stuff since then.
Yeah.
But
you see it as you go.
It's huge. I mean, that attitude and that mentality to the world needs new stories. The world needs new stuff. We need new content. A lot of the stories, a lot of things that are out here even are, they've been telling the same stories for 50, 60, 70 years. And so anything new is good. And the fact that folks like yourself and more so than me, but I'll help anybody that has a question or needs assistance. But what you've done with CCP and I guess Charter now
Comics,
and the other, it's the right mentality, and I think kindness wins.
Yeah.
In the long term, no matter what.
Well, you should always help people. Like you shouldn't just be like, well, how much money do you have so I can help you? Like, really? It's like, is that what we're leading up to in life? It is, but just
it's just a part of it.
Yeah.
We're all trying to make a living,
right?
But there's a difference in what you're putting out there versus what someone that is after money alone is putting out there. And again, I think it just comes back.
Yeah, and anybody could even come to my table, and I'll talk to you for however long I have.
Hours.
Yeah.
If you go talk to McLain, he will talk to you for hours.
I would be careful. Choose wisely. But my wife can contest of my journey in 27 years of the music industry. Like when we started out, we didn't even know we were cool, and we were refusing to go with record labels. Not saying that I suggest or not suggest that, but we were spending about $100,000 in loans, to make records and then go out there and sell it ourselves and stuff like that. And we were doing shows like for Ozfest and things like that, that were big shows that we were able to capture. And then what it led up to in the music industry, after being about 10 or 15 years into it, I started helping other bands, pull themselves out of their closets or their local venues and show them like, dude, just do indie stuff. And I remember pitching, right, Marty? I remember pitching like indie through the music industry. Now, I will tell you, in 2012, I did sell out to Sony. So all of my music and the rights are owned by Sony Entertainment. So, and I worked for those guys for a while. But the first set of years, I battled that out indie until somebody gave me the right, call and the right money to do what I needed to do. It's basically like comics, writing the story, spending your own money to make whatever little money you can to make that comic book, and then build that fan base, and then have a Netflix come over and go, dude, I don't want Marvel or DC anymore. I want indie stuff. I want a fresh story. And then they buy it from you for millions of dollars. And then you're like, oh, that's great. I have this money now. Now I can go make another one.
If
You
they're
know?
watching, they can hit us up and
Yeah.
anytime.
It's McLain McGuire at yahoo.com. Oh, I'm so sorry. Somebody has a question. Yes.
Well, it's fun. So the story started with a map. So I really just wanted to draw a map of the Republic of Texas. So that's really where it started. And I got into drawing that map, and during that period of time, there was an area of Texas that was disputed, called the Disputed Territory. And that's really kind of where the name came from, the idea came from. I didn't know exactly what I would do with it, but I knew that sounded like a really cool thing. And so fast forward a little while, and I was talking to Chris Hayes. He was writing a story, and so for my day job, I do tech writing and art for the commercial world. And I wanted something more fun. Chris sounded like he was having a blast.
It is fun.
I'm going to give this a try. It fits all of the things that I've done in my career. Why not? Right. And so I had that Disputed Territory thing in the back of my head and thought that's kind of a cool thing. So that time period, I'm from Texas. I grew up here. So the subject matter and knowing the history of Texas, I thought folding some real history into it was cool. And so, yeah, it kind of all just happened by accident a little bit, because I didn't have this idea to do a Western from the beginning. And there's more to it. It's more about the spirits than it is the Old West. But
well,
yeah.
You said something that's super important that I think everybody should take home with them. It's like, you got to love what you do, and then you'll do it, and you'll work harder on it and everything. If you're not working hard for something, then you obviously don't love what you do. You know what I mean? So, you have a question, little lady? What's your question? Posters? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you have.
I've done some, but
yeah.
You've done
a
lot.
Done a few. Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question.
Tell her about your movie posters.
Mine?
Did you do the Spider-Man?
Did I do the Spider-Man? No, I didn't do the Spider-Man posters. I wish.
You didn't do Spider-Man for the, what was that movie?
Oh, now my own personal posters that I have. I did so movie theaters in 2018. I did this, long story short, I did this blank cover for somebody, and I did Miles Morales, and so long story short, it ended up in the so nice hands of somebody, and in movie theaters, they were handing out cue cards when you went to watch Spider-Verse, right? They would hand out art cards at the corporate theaters, and they would have Spider-Man art on it. And it was a group of artists. Well, I was one of those artists, because Sony contacted us and said, oh, which, I probably shouldn't say this on social media, but I thought they were going to bust me, basically. And I was just like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about this. But they were like, hey, is this your art? Is this what you did? Blah, blah. Yeah. Well, can you perfect it? Can you clean it up? Because they knew what kind of digital artist I was. So they were like, clean it up. We'll give you 6 shots at doing something. 4 shots, but 6 pictures, basically. And ironically, they couldn't pay me. So I did it anyways. And the changeover was that I got to sell the prints, basically, at my table. And so, I have 6 prints. And the funny story is they had 4 images that I could use from the Spider-Verse that I could draw personally in my style or digitally draw, and then 2 I could pick on my own. Well, again, because of social media, I'm not going to say what character it is, but I picked one out of the 2 characters, and they were like, why do you want to draw that character? And I said, oh, it's one of my favorite Spider-Man characters, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, I don't know. We're not sure if we're going to let you draw that. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. So then a week later, they were like, yeah, go ahead and draw it. Hey, but when you watch the movie, call me because I need you to stay through the Easter egg. And I want you to call me. I don't care how early, late, middle of the day it is. Call me. The editor was like, call me. And so we all saw what the Easter egg was in the movie, and I called him, and I was like, and he was like, yeah, that's why I was like, do you know anybody that works here? And I was like, oh, wink, wink. So, but, long story short, but I do have 6 posters from that particular movie, and I'm doing 6 more for the 23 one that's coming out. So.
But the relation there to you enjoyed what you were doing.
Oh, I love
The
drawing
process.
Spider-Man. I mean, if you look at my portfolio, you're like, seriously, bro, you need to get a hobby, because I love Spider-Man. I love it. I mean, what does my studio look like? Spider-Man, like if my grown-ass wife would let me have Spider-Man sheets and pillows.
Well, why can't we? Why not?
Well, we got to make
What?
one room look
What's the problem?
normal. Yeah, she's like, nope.
They make them. Do they make them in
know?
king size?
What if they were Egyptian cotton?
Like 14 layer linen.
600 thread count.
She might be on
Yeah,
that
that
one.
might work.
No, but I love Spider-Man that much. I relate to it. I grew up with it. My second comic book I ever received in life from my old man was a Spider-Man comic book, and I just love it. I have all the original movie posters, even the one that they destroyed in 9/11. I have that on my wall, signed by the entire cast, because I did a promo card for Marvel around that time as a design job. Had no idea it was for Marvel, and my payment was a poster. And they were like, here, we destroyed like 1,000 of these. Y'all want one? And I was like, oh, cool. And I had everybody's signature on the back. It was really cool. So that's what kind of nut I am, and so why not, right? And so that was the major question from Sony was like, hey, do you like to draw Spider-Man? Yeah. You ever drawn him before?
Just a couple times.
Once or twice, So, yeah, like I'm big on commissions. Like I'll do commissions for you. But if you ask me to draw Spider-Man, I will do a commission for you.
How many Spider-Men have you drawn on lined notebook paper or like in a 3-ring binder?
God, Jesus, man.
Because isn't that where most of it starts?
I'm
like I know
45
for
years
me,
old,
it starts there.
Oh, geez. I don't know. I have no idea. Thousands.
Yeah. How many times did you get in trouble for drawing?
I don't know if I want to say that on social media. I've had once my hand shook at a large Comic-Con that said, good job. By the way, I'm the editor with Marvel. And I immediately start putting my shit away. Yes, sir.
I don't know if y'all talked about what y'all have done. What is your favorite project or issue that you've done, and why?
Like favorite comic book issue?
That
First, what comics have you done? Everybody else done?
I've worked on a lot. So my all-time favorite, I'm gonna pick on myself. My all-time favorite is my first creator-owned comic book that I wrote with a great writer named Rob Bass and a good team of artists. It was called Dead Robot, and it was a creative title that I really wanted to do. And nobody would do it with me for the longest time because they were like, Dead Robot, that doesn't make any sense. It's a machine, Well, if you know me, I like 4 different things. I like time travel, robots, dinosaurs, and space. And so robots was right up my alley. And I wanted to make a book that was strictly called Dead Robot. And the meaning of the dead robot is like, you're right, it's true, you cannot kill a robot. But if you deactivate him, isn't he gone? So that's what the story was based out of, so, and I have it on my table. It was 2010, I think, is when that book came out. So I love that a lot because it's robots dealing with basically what was going on in the world at that time, which is we're dealing with now, which is discrimination between races and cultures and stuff like that. Well, the discrimination was between, androids and human beings and what life was going on that no one really knew about. So, but that's my favorite. But I've worked on over, I think we counted last year was over 120 titles in the industry. Current is the Detour that just came out with Charter Comics. I mean, dude, you guys should check that out. The book just hit the shelf today. Like it's at Cole Hayes, I think DJ Hall, they have them at their table. There's a super cool book. You know, it's an issue 1 out of 2 issues. So that's the most recent thing with Charter Comics that we've released. I worked on Hellbringers with Mark May. He's out in the lobby. I worked on all of the Silent Mayhem Productions books. Ryan Kincaid, all of his Persuasion books. I've worked on all of those except for number 1. So he's got a ton of exclusives at his table. You guys should definitely check that out. I worked with him. I mean, that's my most recent stuff, you know.
And you got disputed territory and
Yeah.
Shield?
That's what I've got.
I did a cover for this guy.
Yeah, you did. He
Yeah,
did
that
a
was
cover
pretty
for
cool.
one.
Favorite issue that you worked on?
For me, the favorite issue is the current issue. Part of what I like about this is the growth and just kind of seeing how this thing adapts over time and seeing it grow and look, I mean, just getting better myself, you know. And so each book that I've done, so I've got 6. I call them episodes.
That's fine.
Whatever, issues, books, whatever.
It's comic
So I have
issues.
6 out, and 7 is almost done. It should be done in the next couple of weeks.
I'll get
but-
that.
But the current issue is always my favorite. 6 is interesting, and I'm building them where each one has their own story arc as part of the greater story arc of each volume, and then the greater story arc of the overall story. So they all fit together, they all tie in, but each one kind of has its own little story in itself. And so, yeah, issue 6 is a fun one.
And you're right next to Kincaid, so I mean, you guys find him and pick up. He's got all the issues. He's had some fantastic artists work on his covers, like Alan.
Yeah,
Klum,
the collaboration part of it is probably the most fun. Just some amazing artists that I'm lucky enough to work with has made it the most enjoyable.
Yeah.
And it's putting things out there that were in my head and seeing what other amazing artists will do in return, like where they take it and what they do with it. And that's one of the most enjoyable parts of doing it, period. Obviously seeing the finished product is nice. And I've felt a pretty good sense of accomplishment with each book, but certainly the full volume, you know, when I held the 156 pages of all of that hand drawn, all of that work, all those folks that helped do it, that was a real sense of this is something. That was really cool.
It's cool to have that in your hands. You're like, oh shit, I made this.
Yeah.
You know, get
Yeah.
back to work. Any other questions? Oh yeah, talk about that. The Comic Shield boxes.
Yeah, so that came about because I needed to ship comics thanks to COVID, and I didn't quite appreciate what was on the market from a shipping standpoint. So
No names included.
yeah, I don't disparage people's
Yeah,
names,
of course not.
but I just didn't like them, and so I started talking to industry about what else was out there, and there really wasn't anything. So I started building the concept and worked with industry to perfect that, and you know, asked them, what do you hate? What do you like? Let's build something better. And so that's what we did, and it's gone really well. I've shipped a little over 100,000 units, and it's look, I make this widely known. It's not a massive profit situation. I'm not going to get rich doing those, but it feels good that people are getting their stuff without damage, and you're able to advertise your own projects. And so that really is fulfilling as much as anything else, is seeing it grow from that standpoint and what people can do with their own projects.
Yeah, me too, man. I got it down like
They'll
for about a
toughen your
minute.
hands up a little.
Yeah. Dude. Any other questions? Yes, Spider-Man.
All right, so just
I don't know his name.
is there what kind of advice would you want to give us to comic book readers, artists, writers? What's some good advice that you would want to give to us?
Well, the best advice is to just create.
Yeah.
That if you have ideas, if you have things that you want to accomplish, to go for it. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't It really doesn't. It doesn't matter what adversity you have, what you're up against. There's fulfillment at the end, and you just have to grind through whatever it is that gets in your way. If you have a good idea, don't listen to who doesn't want you to fulfill that great idea. Go do it.
Yeah. Write it down. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. It should never be a process where you're like, hey, I got this idea. It's right here. No, you got to write that down. And just remember, the best advice I give people on anything with ideas is like, remember, when you find that pinnacle point in your life and you're like, I have this idea, there's 4 other people in this world that have the same idea. It's all about who's going to act on it first. So, any other questions? I mean, come on. Yeah, oh, shit.
I've been waiting for this question.
Yeah, I can feel the heat, Yes, sir. Mr.
From each one of you, what's the shows like this, or going to visit and seeing the fans, seeing the other creators, what do you look for to get out of it that's going to help take you, build you, mold you, and also, who's your mentor?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, man. Mentor.
I don't think they mean me. Just like,
I mean, besides, that's my mentor right there. He's living the dream. I missed. What was the first part of that question? I got locked up there.
Start with the mentor. Who's that person? And it may not be the person we know that is every day in the project with you. Maybe it's someone that just supports you every day through it. I mean, who's that mentor that helps push you through those times when every one of us hits that wall?
Well, for me, it's my wife for
okay,
sure.
Thank God you said that. I could see the gravestone being chipped.
Yeah,
as
it's
thought
definitely
process.
she's my biggest supporter,
You're gonna
and
survive.
she's one of my editors on top of that. So she helps me not look stupid when I go to print. But
It's an open-ended conversation.
yeah.
Let's not go there.
no, I do. I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily say mentor, but she's certainly my rock. Like, I can't do what I do without that.
That's the support's important.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
period.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't answer your question really.
What was
but
the other part of the question?
Cons like this when you guys go to shows.
What do you get out of it?
Oh, man, I tell you, so I've been to some small ones that were very frustrating, and I've been to others that have been great. And what I've really pulled from that is that it's about interacting with people. And if you go to these shows where you're not interacting, it's just, I get nothing from that. So it really is about talking to people about what you're working on, what their ideas are, what they're working on. That is what makes these what they are to me. You get so many ideas, you get so many, just perspectives that you didn't have before. And again, that's part of that. I talked about the collaboration with other artists and other people that are co-writing episodes, like the guy behind you there. Yeah, that was. There you go, Brian.
Do you predict that to be the best-selling episode?
I mean, with his name attached to it, I don't see how it's not going to be the most successful, really.
Why wouldn't it be?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's called flipping it around.
But you didn't say that was your favorite issue.
Well, it's not done yet. It's not done yet. It's not the current issue.
I like the background noise. Ooh. Yeah. Fight. No.
So for you, the best
For
part of
me,
the shows.
The best part of the shows is like, and I'll add to his, is like it's the same thing, but it's the networking part, and talking to the fans, whether you're networking with the fans or networking with other companies or other artists or creators. I like to go, and I tell everybody this, new or old in the industry, is like, I like to go to these shows and look at everybody's table and see what they're doing and what they're working on, see what stories are out there. Because to me, I can come home and not copy that exact same thing, but it gives me knowledge on what's out there and what's going on and what can I do to make myself better for the next show or the next project I work on. And books as well, like I'll go through and I'll flip through creators' books and stuff like that just to see I mean, how their storytelling is, their lettering and stuff like that, to see what's going on, you know. And like I just became, I'll give you an example. I just became a fan of James Tinian that does Ice Cream Man, Wind, and stuff like that. And I was handed the Wind book, and I'm usually not into fantasy, but I love that book. You know, it's so cool, and the lettering in it was completely different from anything else, and so now I want to do that kind of lettering. So I perfected my own. I started designing my own bubbles and stuff like that. So all the lettering you see for the last 2 years, all the bubbles and stuff like that, even the fonts, I've created on my own. So they're mine.
I want to point out that Chris came in the room here looking at his watch like we're taking a long time. He's the one that said he wants you and I
could have swore that. Yeah.
to come on here, and you expect us not to talk, especially this guy, not to talk a lot?
Yeah.
What, I mean,
That's what I do.
Apparently he missed the part, it's about the fans.
Right. So that, yeah.
it's about the fans. It's what they want, Chris.
Jeez. That's
It's flashing
not
the,
a-
I saw him
not a long
flashing the
time.
flashlight back there at us.
Any other? The other question was the mentor, right? So I have to take the same road as like my wife.
She's
I mean,
sitting right there.
I
Yeah.
know, dude. You know, I tell her that all.
I forced his hand.
I tell her that all the time because I actually come from a family where when I was 16, 17 years old and I started writing music and I played a few venues in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and came home and it was super cool. Oh, I had a lot of fun. How the hell did you get in those venues? Well, I don't know, my cousin, you know. So that was hard to explain to the folks. And but I enjoyed it so much that we had a record label wanting to sponsor us, but we had to quit school. Well, my mother's a 40-year educator. She was like, oh, no, you go to school. That's what you do. And so, you know, I had to sit down and not do the GED thing. It was, I forget what it's called, but you basically pay a shit ton of money to place out of high school. So I placed out 2 years early because my folks were super supportive, and they were like, if this is what you want to do, you're going to fail 100 times, but you're going to win like half of those. So if that's what you want to do it. And so I did it. And then here, you know, Marty and I have been together for a long time, and she's the same way, super supportive. I don't know how many times I probably wrecked this family, and she's just like, all right, cool, let's do it again. Like, man, I like her. Damn, she's awesome. So, any other questions?
What's on the horizon? Comic Shield 2?
Uh,
Distributor 30?
Sounds like he works for Superman.
I'm just creating. So, in terms of Comic Shield, I've got several exclusives that I'm doing art and books for those. And then Disputed, I've written up through book 13. So I've got a lot of material. So I've got the full second volume virtually written. And I mean, there's a lot of grind and a lot of process to, as you know, to get through what it's going to take to get those to print. But
Oh, he knows.
he does know.
Don't you,
He's
Paul?
he's
Paul's
finding out
like-
the hard way. Yeah,
That's
it's
good.
it's challenging. I actually was talking to him in my booth earlier, and I got really lucky with the internal sketch guys that I got. That we just connected really well, and they were just the right fit. And so you also have to get a little lucky, and I feel lucky when it comes to who's worked on this with me. In terms of other artists, I've got. I probably shouldn't share names. I have some really, really good cover artists coming up. It's just a matter of what books and when. My schedule is I set a goal of at least 4 books a year, and I'm definitely on pace for 4. I might get a 5th one out this year. We'll see. I'm just grinding. I'm enjoying that process.
Yeah, it's fun. It's cool.
You got a question for me?
If you had the option of finding $10 on the ground,
Okay.
or your local WNBA team winning the championship, which one would you choose?
Do we have a local WNBA team?
We do, the Dallas Wings.
When do they play?
Now, the season's going on right
It's happening right now.
now. Right now.
Well,
$10 would buy a lot of Buffalo Wild Wings.
I could probably get season tickets to those games if I
For the
had the
$10.
$10. So I'm going to take the $10. I mean, I think that's, yeah.
That's a good question. Wow.
Who sets your booth for you when you go to cons?
Who sets it up?
Sets your booth up for you.
Well, I set it up, and then someone else comes in and rearranges it. That's how that.
That's the support.
Yeah.
Every show or certain shows?
Certain shows, like when I'm right next to Pastime Comics and Collectibles, my booth tends to get rearranged sometimes when I go to shows next to
That's a
them.
good question.
Yeah. Excellent question. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Just wasted like 5 seconds of your life.
By the way, I would take, if it were $5, I would take the $5. If it was a dollar bill, I'd probably take that. Just, yeah, just to. It's for the fan to decide.
Yes, Marty.
What's your oldest artist tool that you still?
Oh, she reached in the
she's
bag for
smart.
that one. That's good.
She's a smart one.
You
I
going
like
first?
her. No, you go ahead. I just stare at her.
So for me, it's
She's talking about artist tool, not sexual tool.
no, I know,
Okay,
I know.
That could be an artist thing too.
I
D
I
batteries
think
and
I think just a
package
number 2 pencil. Like, I still use a number 2 pencil.
Fair enough.
It's what I'd learned to draw with. It's what I got in trouble in school drawing with, and I stick with it to this day. The good old number 2 pencil is as good as it gets.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
You?
Mine's lame. God, that was a kind
Lamer than a number 2 pencil?
No,
the most common item?
number 2 pencil. That was a great one because I'm like, oh yeah, why didn't I think about that? No, my up until last December, mine was like that old crappy Wacom tablet that had no screen, and you're looking at the computer, and you're like, that's probably what ruined my vision.
All right. So you're going digital for your
Right. Well,
reach
because
back
I'm
tool.
digital, and so
Well, I'm totally
my-
digital, but I wouldn't have.
my supportive wife, came in the room one time, and she was like, I am so sick of watching you create things digitally, and you're clicking the whole time with the mouse, drawing. She caught me one time. I was drawing with the mouse, and what are you doing? I was like, drawing.
I like drawing with a mouse
Oh,
personally.
it's crazy. So she bought me an iPad, and so
Well, the rest is history for me. When I bought
Bam!
when I
You
bought
know?
that iPad, that was a so that's not the oldest tool, but it certainly the iPad has been a huge thing for me.
sure.
I was in a very challenging financial situation at the time. Things weren't great, and yet I had this idea to do this story, to do this book. That was January of, what is it now? 20? I don't know.
I think it's 21.
20. January of 20. And yeah, sorry, I don't even know what year it is.
It
I don't
doesn't-
know what year it is.
It doesn't matter.
And I went and bought an iPad with the pencil and the whole, bought Procreate, and I got the box out, and I looked at the price. I had the receipt right there, and I'm like, man, this feels kind of stupid. I don't know. And then I just said out loud, you only live once.
Payment
and
plans.
You only live once, and I want to do this, and
I saw the same thing, the price tag, and I was like, oh my God.
well, I
But
did
then-
feel like I was on the wrong
Well-
end of the industry at that
Well,
point.
then immediately I was like, do I buy it? Oh no. Payment plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just,
Yeah. Well,
If-
it all worked out.
yes.
So what's the best advice you would give to somebody that wants to do full-time art?
Yeah, oh my God.
Oh boy. If you want to do full-time art, there is no singular thing, singular way to accomplish that.
Well, there kind of is.
Well, what's that?
So
I'd like to know.
if
I'd like to quit my other
if
stuff.
yeah, you're not gonna like it. If yeah, what I recommend to people brutally is like if you're in that mindset where you're like, man, I really need to do this full time, I'd get more work done and I would be more structured and I would be able to go to Comic-Cons all the time without the taking time off of work and overall get more stuff done. Well, if you're working a day job or something like that, maybe save that, make a savings of some sort for at least 6 months to a year while you're developing in the beginning of your stages of what you're trying to do, you know, whether it's creating comic books and stuff like that.
Never stop working for yourself.
Right, exactly.
So whether you're working 40 hours, 60 hours, whatever it is to not stop working for the things that you want to accomplish. That would be what I would say.
Absolutely.
My career has always had some kind of art element to it. I've done structural design and I've had all these things. They weren't necessarily all fun, but
so you're talking about loving what you do, but if you're going to have a day job, do that as well.
may as well get better.
Right.
May as well get better at the craft that you want to be. So find a job that you can at least express some of what you're doing.
That's great advice, you know.
If I could make a living off of loving you, I'd be a millionaire in a week or two.
I like that guy's voice.
Yeah,
Hello, guys.
that's solid.
Look, you guys rocked this little panel.
Thanks.
It was a good.
We had no idea what we're doing.
Because now we got some more coming up, and now we know what to expect. All you guys were awesome. Appreciate all the interaction and the questions that were asked. If y'all want to hang out in this room, the cameras are going to be switched, and that one's going to get turned on. And Miss Ariel.
What, dude?
So we'll be up there where the red carpet's at. So if you guys want to check that out, please be sure to check that out. Thanks, McLain and Mike, for coming in again.
Thank you.